We must go inside.
Prepare yourselves.
Right, let's move.
Be careful. No, please. Someone help me. They're coming. Oh God, please, I don't want to die here. Please, no, don't do this. There is no other way. I'm back. I'm actually back.
The hour approaches. Let the bells toll.
I've watched you die 8 times.
The widow who chose the monster beneath the mountain.
The first thing I smelled was burning cedar. Not smoke. Memory. The scent drifted through the darkness before the flames arrived, warm against my skin, carrying with them the crackling sound of my childhood home collapsing beam by beam. Somewhere above me, men shouted. Someone screamed my father's name. Then came the footsteps. Measured. Unhurried. As if death had all the time in the world. I tried to move. Iron chains bit into my wrists. Cold stone pressed against my back. The family crypt beneath Vane Manor swallowed every breath I fought to take. The fire upstairs had already stolen most of the air. Heavy oak doors groaned somewhere beyond the darkness. Not opening. Closing. Locking. A lantern appeared beyond the bars. Golden light spilled across the stone floor. Commander Lucian Vale stepped into view wearing polished black armor trimmed with silver. The hero of the kingdom. The man I had loved since I was 15. The man I had married. The man who watched me die. His expression held no anger. Only disappointment. You shouldn't have searched Father's study. His voice remained as calm as if we were discussing the weather. You forced my hand. Blood coated my lips. My father knew. He knew enough to become inconvenient. Behind him another pair of footsteps echoed across the stone. Soft. Elegant. Maribel emerged wearing white mourning silk. She looked every bit the grieving family friend. Except grief never smiled. Maris did. She knelt outside the iron bars and studied me with curious blue eyes. I almost admire your persistence. She reached through the bars and gently brushed soot from my cheek. The gesture would have looked affectionate to anyone watching. There was no one watching. You kept believing love could protect you. I laughed. Or tried to. Came out as a broken cough. Love. I whispered. Lucian sighed. It was never love, Ilara. He removed the Vane signet ring from his glove. The ring my father had placed into my husband's hand during our wedding. I needed your family's silver. His words landed harder than the collapsing ceiling above us. You needed my mines. I needed stability for the kingdom. You needed power. His silence answered me. Maris stood. The fire should reach this chamber within minutes. She adjusted one white glove. The historians will say Lady Ilara Vane became unstable after her father's illness. They'll say she locked herself inside the crypt. They'll call it a tragedy. Lucian looked away. Not because he regretted anything. Because he couldn't bear watching consequences. Heavy smoke rolled through the narrow ceiling vents. Heat crawled across the stone. Somewhere overhead, ancient timber gave way with a deafening crash. The manor was falling. I closed my eyes. Not because I accepted death. Because I refused to spend my final moment looking at them. I thought of my father. Of the silver hills behind our estate. Of the promise I made to protect House Vane. I had failed every one of them. The world dissolved into fire. A bell rang. Once. Twice. 3 times. My lungs filled with cool spring air. Birds sang outside an open window. Someone pulled back velvet curtains. Lady Ilara? A familiar voice. Warm. Gentle. My maid Clara. I opened my eyes. Morning sunlight spilled across embroidered sheets. My bedroom. No smoke. No chains. No fire. Only the scent of lavender drifting through the room. Clara smiled. Happy birthday, my lady. Birthday. No. No. My heart stopped, then slammed painfully back to life. I threw aside the blankets and stumbled toward the tall standing mirror. 24 had become 23. The The silver scar across my collarbone gone. The burn along my left wrist gone. Only smooth skin stared back at me. Behind me Clara frowned. My lady. What day is it? The 18th. What month? She blinked. Harvest moon, of course. No. 3 days. Exactly 3 days before the engagement ceremony. 3 days before I chose Lucian. 3 days before I signed away House Vane. 3 days before the future began burning. The room tilted beneath my feet. I gripped the edge of the dressing table until my knuckles turned white. I remembered everything. Every lie. Every humiliation. Every betrayal. Every second inside that crypt. Someone knocked. 3 precise knocks. My lady, Clara said quietly. Your father requests your presence. In the council chamber. Of course he did. Today was selection day. The ancient custom that allowed the heir of every great house to publicly announce a political marriage. Last time, I had walked into that chamber smiling, certain, hopelessly in love. I had spoken Lucian Vale's name without hesitation. This time, never again. The council chamber overlooked the eastern Silver Valley. Morning light poured through stained glass windows depicting generations of House Vane. My father stood beside the great oak table. Lord Adrian Vane. Still alive. Still strong. His dark hair had only begun turning gray. He looked up as I entered. His stern face softened. There you are. For one impossible heartbeat I almost ran into his arms. In my last life I buried him before winter. I swallowed the ache. I apologize, Father. No apology necessary. He gestured toward the table. 12 sealed folders rested in a perfect circle, each bearing the crest of one noble house. The council has completed its recommendations. You may review every eligible candidate. He paused. Though I suspect I already know whose folder you'll open first. Lucian. Everyone knew. The entire kingdom believed our marriage inevitable, including me, until I died. My father smiled faintly. You've loved the boy for years. Loved. Past tense. The word almost hurt less. I slowly walked around the table. House Rowan. House Ashcroft. House Evermere. House Holloway. House Blackmere. My fingers continued moving, until they stopped. A black wax seal. No family colors. No gilded crest. Only the mark of Blackspire Mountain. Father noticed immediately. His expression changed. That file should not concern you. Why not? He hesitated. Because no one expected you to consider it. I lifted the folder. The wax felt strangely cold. Who is he? Father's jaw tightened. Lord Caelan Thorne. Silence filled the chamber. Even the servants avoided looking at the file. The exile. I asked quietly. He is no exile. He chose isolation. Father folded his hands behind his back. Blackspire has not attended court in 8 years. They guard the hollow gates. They answer to no noble. They rarely answer even to the crown. I've heard the stories. So has everyone. They say he never removes an iron mask. They say he commands creatures beneath the mountain. They say soldiers disappear inside Blackspire. Father's eyes remain fixed on mine. They also say no woman has ever accepted his proposal. I am not asking about rumors. What kind of man is he? For a long moment, my father said nothing. Finally, I have met him once. And he spoke very little. But every man in that room listened when he did. Something about that answer settled deep inside me. Not comfort. Recognition. As though a forgotten thread had tightened somewhere beneath my heart. Father pushed Lucian's folder gently toward me. You don't have to make this difficult. The kingdom expects. I know what the kingdom expects. I interrupted him softly. Then I looked directly at him. I would like to invoke the old protection accord. His eyes widened. The servants froze. Even Clara stopped breathing. The ancient law. Older than the kingdom itself. If invoked before an engagement ceremony, the heir of any great house could request sanctuary through marriage from any unmarried sovereign recognized under the accord. No one had used it in nearly 2 centuries. Father searched my face. This is not a decision people make lightly. I know. It will change every alliance in the realm. I know. You understand what choosing Black Spire means? I closed my eyes, not to remember Lucian, to forget him. When I opened them again, the fear was gone. I do. My voice never shook. I, Alara Vane, heir to House Vane, formally request the protection of Lord Kaelin Thorne under the old protection accord. Silence. Absolute silence. A cold wind swept across the valley. Every candle in the council chamber flickered, far beyond the eastern mountains, so distant no ordinary ear should have heard them. A single bronze bell rang. Then another. Then another. The forgotten bells of Black Spire had begun to answer. And 8 years after the mountain had fallen silent, someone inside Black Spire had finally awakened. The bells did not stop. They rolled across the mountains in slow, solemn waves, deep enough to vibrate through the marble floor beneath my feet. 1, 2, 3. Each toll echoed like the heartbeat of something ancient waking beneath the earth. No one spoke. My father stared toward the eastern windows. His normally steady hands tightened behind his back. It cannot be. One of the council elders swallowed hard. Those bells have been silent since the Black Winter. Another whispered almost to himself. Lord Thorne answered. The words settled over the chamber like fresh snow. Answered. Not accepted. Not refused. Answered. Father slowly turned toward me. Alara. I know. No, he said quietly. I don't think you do. Within an hour, the news had spread beyond House Vane. By noon, every noble estate in the capital knew. By sunset, the entire kingdom was talking about only one thing. Lady Alara Vane had rejected Commander Lucian Vale, and said she had chosen the monster of Black Spire. Outside the manor gates, reporters crowded the stone avenue. Crystal recording mirrors floated above their heads. Questions flew through the cold afternoon air. Lady Alara, did Commander Vale reject your proposal? Are the rumors true? Did House Vane lose favor with the crown? Why Black Spire? Have you even met Lord Thorne? I never answered. My carriage rolled past them in complete silence. Inside, Clara sat across from me, twisting her gloves. My lady. Yes. Are you frightened? I looked through the window toward the distant mountains. I was. I rested one hand over the place where flames had once consumed my lungs. I'm frightened of something else now. The royal hall glittered beneath thousands of crystal lanterns. Tonight's harvest reception had been planned for months. Normally, it would have celebrated the future union between House Vane and the kingdom's greatest commander. Instead, every conversation stopped when I entered. Dozens of eyes followed me across polished marble. Curiosity, shock, pity, then another emotion, expectation. They were waiting for him. I did not have to wait long. The great doors opened. Commander Lucian Vale entered wearing the white ceremonial uniform of the Royal Guard. Tall, handsome, golden-haired, perfect, the kingdom's favorite son. The room visibly relaxed. Heroes always made people feel safe, even when they shouldn't. Lucian smiled politely at the nobles greeting him. Then his eyes found me. The smile disappeared. He crossed the ballroom without hesitation. Every step echoed. When he finally stopped before me, the crowd had already formed a wide circle. Alara. His voice remained calm. You've embarrassed yourself. Not even hello. Some things never changed. I folded my hands before me. So I've been told. His eyes narrowed. I assumed the announcement was some childish attempt to force my hand. It wasn't. You honestly expect anyone to believe you've chosen Black Spire? I don't require anyone's belief. His jaw tightened. You've loved me for nearly a decade. I did. His expression flickered. Past tense. He had heard it. You don't stop loving someone overnight. No. You stop after they give you enough reasons. For the first time, confusion crossed his face. It vanished almost immediately. He leaned closer. This game has gone far enough. Withdraw the request. I won't. The crown will never approve it. The law doesn't require approval. It requires recognition. Silence stretched between us. Behind Lucian, whispers spread across the ballroom. He lowered his voice. What exactly are you trying to accomplish? I met his eyes without blinking. Changing my future. He frowned. What? Nothing. Music resumed. Conversation slowly returned. Lucian walked away. But he looked back twice. In my first life, he never looked back. Not once. As twilight settled over the capital, another disturbance erupted outside. The sound reached the ballroom first. Horse hooves. Not many. Only 4. Perfectly synchronized. The orchestra stopped playing. Guests drifted toward the windows. A servant burst through the entrance. My lords. His face had gone pale. They're here. Who? The riders from Black Spire. The ballroom emptied onto the palace terrace. I stepped forward with everyone else. 4 enormous black horses stood motionless in the courtyard. No banners. No heralds. No musicians. Only silence. Behind them waited a carriage unlike any I had ever seen. Its wood was black as volcanic glass. Silver mountain symbols had been carved directly into the doors. No crest. No royal colors. No decoration beyond the symbols themselves. Even the horses wore no insignia. The carriage simply existed, as though it had emerged from the mountain rather than traveled from it. The driver climbed down first. An older man, gray-haired, broad-shouldered. He wore a long charcoal coat fastened with iron clasps. He removed one glove, placed a closed fist over his heart, then bowed toward me. Lady Alara Vane. His voice carried across the silent courtyard. I bring greetings from my lord. No one moved. No one interrupted. He reached inside the carriage. Instead of luggage, he withdrew a long rectangular chest wrapped in black leather. It took both hands to carry. He approached the palace steps, stopped exactly 10 feet away, never once lifting his eyes above mine. The Lord of Black Spire has accepted your request under the old protection accord. Gasp swept through the crowd. Accepted. Officially. Legally. Irrevocably. The driver placed the chest upon the stone. He stepped back. It belongs to you. My father nodded once. You may open it. The leather straps released with a quiet click. Inside rested only 3 objects. A single iron ring, a folded black cloak lined with silver thread, and a sealed envelope. No jewels. No gold. No extravagant gifts. Only necessities. I lifted the envelope first. The wax seal bore no family crest. Only the outline of a mountain. For reasons I couldn't explain. My fingers trembled. I broke the seal. Inside waited a single sheet. 1 sentence. Written in neat black ink. This time, I will reach you before the fire. Asterisk asterisk my heartbeat stopped. Not slowed. Stopped. The words blurred. Or, the fire. My hands began shaking uncontrollably. No one else understood. To everyone around me it sounded like a poetic promise. To me, it was impossible. There had only been 1 fire. 1 crypt. 1 death. No living soul knew those final words except the 3 people who had stood outside the bars. Lucian, Maris, and me. I slowly looked toward the eastern horizon. Black Spire Mountain stood beyond countless miles of forest, invisible from here. Yet somehow, I felt as though someone on that distant peak was watching the same sunset. Watching me. Waiting. The driver spoke one final time. My lord requested that I deliver 1 message if Lady Alara appeared frightened. He paused, then looked directly into my eyes. He said, "You are no longer facing tomorrow alone." Something inside my chest cracked. Not painfully, quietly, like frozen earth touched by the first warmth of spring. For the first time since waking in my second life, I wasn't the only person carrying memories that shouldn't exist. Someone else knew. Someone else remembered. And somewhere beyond the eastern mountains, the man the kingdom called a monster already knew exactly how I had died. The letter never left my hand. Long after the Black Spire carriage disappeared through the palace gates, long after the nobles resumed whispering, long after the musicians forced themselves to play another polite waltz, I was still staring at the same 7 words. This time, I will reach you before the fire. Asterisk asterisk someone touched my elbow. Lady Alara? I folded the letter before anyone could glimpse the writing. It was my father. His face had regained its usual composure, but his eyes betrayed him. "You should return home." "I'm all right." "No." His voice softened. "You've been pretending to be all right since this morning." I offered the faintest smile. "You noticed." "I always notice." For a heartbeat, neither of us spoke. In my first life, this was the father I had failed to protect. Not this time. Never again. The following morning, the capital woke beneath gray skies. By breakfast, another rumor had spread. Lord Caelan Thorne himself was coming to the capital. Impossible. Ridiculous. Blackspire's ruler hadn't attended court in nearly a decade. Children had grown into adults without ever seeing his face. Some believed he no longer existed. Others claimed he had become something less or something more than human. Every version ended the same way. No one expected him to appear. Especially not now. Royal Avenue overflowed with spectators. Merchants abandoned their stalls. Servants climbed rooftops. Even soldiers struggled to keep the streets clear. I watched from the balcony of Vane Manor beside my father. Below us the city waited. Silence spread gradually through the crowd. Not because anyone demanded it. Because something was approaching. The first riders emerged through the eastern gate. 12 horsemen. Every horse black. Every cloak charcoal gray. No banners. No polished armor. No display of wealth. Only disciplined silence. Behind them came a single carriage. The same obsidian carriage from yesterday. It rolled through the capital without fanfare. Yet thousands stepped aside before it reached them. No one wanted to stand in its path. The carriage stopped before the royal palace. Nothing happened. Several long seconds passed. Then, the door opened. A black boot touched the stone. The man who stepped into daylight seemed taller than the doorway itself. He wore a long black coat that brushed the ground. Dark leather gloves. Heavy iron clasps shaped like mountain wolves. Across the upper half of his face rested an iron mask forged from dark steel. Not decorative. Practical. Ancient. It concealed everything from the bridge of his nose upward. Only the lower half of his face remained visible. Strong jaw. Pale skin. A mouth set in quiet restraint. His black hair stirred gently in the autumn wind. No crown. No sword displayed. No unnecessary movement. He simply stood. And somehow, the entire avenue felt smaller. A royal herald cleared his throat. "Presenting." His voice faltered. "Lord Caelan Thorne." The crowd remained utterly silent. Not respectful. Careful. As though speaking too loudly might wake something sleeping beneath the mountains. Caelan looked neither left nor right. He acknowledged no one. Not the nobles. Not the reporters. Not even the crown prince waiting atop the palace steps. And said, he lifted his head slightly. Toward my balcony. Toward me. Though dozens of windows overlooked the avenue. I knew. Without question. He had found me. The distance between us stretched nearly 200 yards. Yet I felt those unseen eyes settle upon me with unsettling certainty. Not curiosity. Recognition. As though he had searched for me before. Many times. Then just as quietly. He inclined his head. One respectful bow. Not to House Vane. Not to the palace. To me. The crowd erupted into stunned whispers. Inside the palace, panic spread through the royal staff. Why wasn't anyone informed? Who approved this visit? Where is the king's secretary? No escort. No ceremony? The questions chased one another through the marble corridors. None found answers. Blackspire obeyed its own customs. Always had. That evening, the crown hosted a formal banquet. Attendance was mandatory. I entered beneath crystal chandeliers wearing midnight blue silk embroidered with silver vines. Conversation faltered. Not because of me. Because of the man standing beside the western windows. Caelan. He had removed neither his gloves nor his mask. He stood alone, holding a crystal glass he never drank from. No one approached him. Even experienced politicians seemed unwilling to cross the invisible distance surrounding him. Only one person ignored it. Lucian. He crossed the ballroom with practiced confidence. Smiling. Always smiling. He stopped 3 feet from Caelan. Lord Thorne. No response. Lucian continued anyway. I imagine there has been some misunderstanding. Still nothing. The engagement request was made impulsively. I'm certain Lady Alara will reconsider. Silence. Lucian laughed lightly. I'd rather settle this privately than embarrass anyone. Alas, Kalen spoke. His voice was lower than I expected. Not loud. Simply impossible to ignore. Embarrassment appears to concern you greatly. A few nearby nobles exchanged uneasy glances. Lucian's smile stiffened. I merely wish to avoid unnecessary conflict. You mistake possession for peace. I beg your pardon? You speak as though Lady Alara belongs to you. Lucian folded his arms. She and I have known each other for years. So I have heard. And she loved me. Kalen regarded him for several silent seconds. Then, did. Only one word. Past tense. Lucian's jaw tightened. Feelings don't disappear because of one impulsive decision. No. Kalen agreed calmly. They disappear because of repeated choices. The ballroom grew impossibly quiet. Lucian took one deliberate step closer. I don't know what stories you've heard about us. But I assure you, you've become involved in something that doesn't concern you. Kalen slowly turned toward him. The movement was almost lazy. Yet every soldier watching unconsciously straightened. You are mistaken. Lucian frowned. About what? It concerns me. Before Lucian could answer, Kalen's gaze shifted past him. Toward me. Our eyes met across the ballroom. He walked. Every conversation stopped. Every noble stepped aside. Not because they were ordered to. Because none of them wished to interrupt whatever was unfolding. He stopped before me. Closer than we had ever stood. For a moment, neither of us spoke. I studied the iron mask. Wasn't polished. Tiny scratches crossed its surface. As though it had survived years of battle. His coat carried the faint scent of cedar. And snow. The same scent I remembered from the letter. My lady. His voice softened almost imperceptibly. My lord. He looked at me carefully. Not admiringly. Carefully. As though comparing me with another memory. Then his gaze lowered. To my right hand. The burn. I blinked. What? The kettle. He frowned almost invisibly. It isn't there. A chill slid through me. What burn? He looked up again. Silence stretched between us. Then, you've changed more than I expected. My pulse quickened. No one knew about the burn. Because it hadn't happened yet. In my first life, tomorrow morning, I accidentally spilled boiling water while preparing medicine for father. The scar remained on my hand until the day I died. I hadn't told anyone. It hadn't happened yet. Yet Kalen had looked for it. He stepped back slightly. I apologize. You've had a long journey, I managed. So have you. The words were quiet enough that only I heard them. What did he mean? Before I could ask, another voice cut through the silence. Alara. Lucian. He approached with measured confidence. I'm afraid I need a private word. I answered before Kalen could. No. It concerns your future. It no longer does. He ignored my reply. Instead, he looked directly at Kalen. I'll only need 5 minutes. No. Kalen answered. Lucian smiled thinly. I wasn't asking you. You should have. The temperature in the room seemed to fall. Neither man raised his voice. Neither moved. Yet every guest sensed the shift. Lucian's pleasant expression finally cracked. You've known her for less than 2 days. Kalen nodded once. Correct. I've known her for years. Another pause. Then Kalen spoke. So have I. The words hit me harder than anyone else. Lucian scoffed. Impossible. Kalen didn't argue. He simply looked at me. Do not walk through the eastern greenhouse tomorrow morning. I stared. What? The glass roof collapses at 9:17. My breath caught. Tomorrow morning. 9:17. Exactly when I crossed the greenhouse in my previous life. On my way back from the kitchens. The falling glass had forced me to take another corridor. That detour led directly to the kitchen, where I burned my hand. Every detail. Exactly as I remembered. Kalen inclined his head. We'll speak again soon. He turned and walked away. No dramatic exit. No lingering glance. Just quiet certainty. I watched him disappear beyond the ballroom doors. Behind me, Lucian exhaled sharply. He's manipulating you. I barely heard him, because one thought drowned out everything else. The letter hadn't been luck. The burn hadn't been coincidence. The greenhouse couldn't be a guess. Only someone who had lived that future could know what tomorrow was supposed to become. And somewhere inside me, a terrifying possibility finally took shape. I wasn't the only person who had escaped the past. I wasn't even the first. I never entered the eastern greenhouse. At exactly 9:17, I stood instead beside the library window, watching autumn rain gather against the glass. Nothing happened for almost an entire minute. Then, a tremendous crash shattered the morning. The palace servants screamed. Birds exploded into the gray sky. Hundreds of glass panels collapsed inward, burying the marble walkway beneath glittering shards. I didn't flinch. I already knew. What unsettled me wasn't the accident. It was the certainty that someone else had known. Someone who should have been impossible. By noon, I was riding toward Blackspire's temporary residence inside the capital. The Crown had offered Lord Kalen rooms within the palace. He had declined. Instead, he occupied an abandoned stone monastery overlooking the northern cliffs. The monks had left decades earlier. Most nobles considered the place haunted. Kalen seemed perfectly comfortable there. My carriage stopped before enormous iron gates. No guards challenged us. No servants hurried forward. The gates opened by themselves. Or so it seemed. Only when I passed through did I notice silent men standing within the shadows. Black coats. No armor. No insignia. Watching everything. Speaking to no one. The entire estate felt less like a noble residence, and more like a fortress pretending to be one. A woman in her 60s greeted me inside. Her silver hair had been braided tightly behind her head. She wore plain black clothing without a single ornament. "You are Lady Alara." "I am." She bowed. "My name is Agnes. I have served House Thorn since Lord Kalen was a child." She studied me with quiet curiosity. "He's been expecting you." I never announced my visit. "No." A faint smile touched her lips. "He still expected you." Kalen waited inside what had once been the monastery's library. Tall windows overlooked the storm. Thousands of old books lined the stone walls. A fire burned quietly in the hearth. He stood beside it, still wearing the iron mask. He looked up as I entered. "You came. I needed answers. I imagined you would." Agnes closed the heavy doors behind us. The room became completely silent. Only rain remained. For several moments, neither of us spoke. Finally, I asked the only question that mattered. "Who are you?" "I already told you." "No." I stepped closer. "I know who Lord Kalen Thorn is. I want to know how you knew about the greenhouse. And the burn. And..." I unfolded the letter from my sleeve. "The fire." He looked at the paper. His expression didn't change. "I wrote every word." "I know." "Then ask what you're really afraid to ask." My heartbeat quickened. I whispered the question. "How?" Kalen walked slowly toward the window. Rain blurred the city beyond. "I have attended 7 funerals." I frowned. "What?" "Yours." The room seemed to tilt. "I don't understand." "You won't." He rested one gloved hand against the stone window frame. "Not yet. Try me." Silence. Long, heavy. Then, "In another life." His voice barely rose above the rain. "You married Lucian Vale." I spread through my chest. "You remember?" "Yes." I couldn't breathe. "You remember everything?" "I remember enough." He looked out across the city. The wedding. The fire. The crypt. The trial that never happened. My father's execution. My father's. I stopped. No, that hadn't happened. Had it? I stared at him. "My father didn't." "In your life?" "No." He turned toward me. "In one of mine." Every word landed like a stone. "In another." Lord Adrian survived the poisoning. My pulse stopped. Poisoning. Not illness. Poison. He exposed members of the royal council. For 3 weeks. Then they hanged him for treason. The room became painfully quiet. My father had never been ill. He had been murdered. Slowly. Deliberately. I felt sick. You said. One of yours. He nodded. There have been others. How many? He hesitated. Too long. Kaylin. 7. The answer echoed through the library. 7 futures. 7 endings. 7 times the world broke. I stared at him. No. It isn't possible. I used to believe that. He looked almost tired. The first time I met you. You were already dead. The second. I arrived minutes too late. The third. I stopped the fire. Hope flickered inside me. You saved me. No. His voice became quieter. They poisoned your wine instead. The hope vanished. The fourth. You disappeared before the engagement. The fifth. Lucian crowned himself regent. The sixth. Black Spire fell. He stopped speaking. What about the seventh? For the first time, his composure cracked. Barely. His gloved hand tightened. The seventh was the longest. What happened? You remembered. I blinked. I remembered. You recognized me. A silence deeper than grief settled between us. We won. His words surprised me. You defeated them? Yes. Then why are we here? He slowly turned from the window. Because victory came too late. You died anyway. Neither of us spoke for a long time. The fire crackled softly. Rain continued falling. 7 lives. 7 failures. 7 funerals. Somehow, the loneliness I'd carried since waking no longer belonged only to me. He had carried it longer. Far longer. Why didn't you tell anyone? I did. What happened? No one believed me. I wouldn't have believed you either. I know. He almost smiled. You still don't. I wanted to argue, and said, another question surfaced. What changed? What made this life different? You. I only chose Black Spire. No. He looked directly at me. You chose me. Something tightened painfully inside my chest. A sharp knock interrupted the silence. Agnes entered carrying a small wooden tray. No tea. Only a folded document. My lord. They found it. Kaylin accepted the papers. His eyes moved quickly across the page. Then, he handed them to me. I recognized the seal immediately. House vein. Medical records. Father's treatment schedule. The physician's signatures covered every page. Near the bottom, one name appeared repeatedly. Dr. Edwin Bell. I looked up sharply. Bell. The father of Maris Bell. Kaylin nodded. The physician treating your father's illness. My stomach dropped. Maris. Lucian's closest companion. The woman who smiled too sweetly. Who always appeared exactly where sympathy was needed. No, couldn't. Then I remembered. Maris had insisted on delivering father's medicine herself. Countless times. Because she claimed she wanted to help. I had thanked her. Every single time. My hands began shaking. If these records are genuine, they are. My father was never sick. No. He was being poisoned. Yes. A terrible realization spread through me. If father had been poisoned before my first death, then the conspiracy hadn't begun after my engagement. It had begun long before I ever chose Lucian. Long before I ever fell in love. Long before I even understood I was standing inside someone else's game. Outside, thunder rolled across the mountains. Kaylin quietly folded the documents. Then he spoke the words that shattered the last illusion I still possessed. You've been trying to stop your own murder. He paused. But your death was never their first move. It had started with my father. And if we were already too late once, how many more moves had our enemies already made before either of us realized we were playing? I did not confront Maris Bell. Not immediately. That had been my greatest mistake in my first life. I had believed truth alone was enough. I had walked into accusations carrying only certainty. Maris had walked in carrying tears. Everyone remembered her tears. No one remembered my evidence. This time, I would let the evidence speak first. 3 mornings later, the Royal Conservatory hosted its annual charity exhibition. Every influential family in the kingdom attended. The event appeared harmless. Paintings, music, scholarship donations. Behind every pleasant smile, deals were made. Alliances shifted. Reputations lived or died. It was exactly the kind of battlefield Maris preferred. Invisible. The ballroom smelled of roses and polished cedar. Crystal chandeliers scattered warm light across hundreds of guests. Maris Bell stood near the center of the room surrounded by noblewomen. She wore pale ivory silk. Simple. Elegant. Perfectly calculated. When people looked at her, they saw kindness, compassion, gentleness. No one saw ambition. That was her greatest weapon. She noticed me almost immediately. A warm smile bloomed across her face. Lady Alara. She crossed the room as if greeting an old friend. I've been worried about you. Have you? Everyone says you've been under tremendous stress. Her voice carried just enough for nearby guests to hear. I hope you're taking care of yourself. Concern, not accusation. She never attacked first. She simply planted ideas. Ideas that grew on their own. I appreciate your concern. I only want peace. She gently touched my sleeve. I know Commander Vale's decision must have been painful. Several ladies lowered their voices, listening, exactly as Maris intended. I smiled. You misunderstand. Do I? I was never rejected. She tilted her head innocently. Oh, I withdrew before there was anything to reject. The surrounding conversation paused. Maris recovered instantly. Of course. I'm simply relieved you found happiness elsewhere. You've always been so generous. Her compliment sounded sincere. It wasn't. She wanted everyone watching to compare us. The graceful healer. The cold heiress. I had fallen into that trap once before. Not again. I heard your father has been working tirelessly. I said pleasantly. Dr. Bell is beloved throughout the capital. Her smile remained. Only her eyes changed. He's devoted to his patients. I've requested copies of his treatment journals. The silence between us lasted less than a second. Till I saw it. The smallest hesitation. Gone almost immediately. For what purpose? I've developed an interest in medicine. How wonderful. She laughed softly. My father will be delighted to assist. She lied beautifully. If she already knew I possessed those records, she would never allow more documents to survive. Across the ballroom, Kalen observed everything. He never approached, never interrupted. Exactly as we had agreed. People already feared him. That fear was useful. His silence was even more useful. One frightened duke whispered to another. Why doesn't he leave her side? He isn't beside her. No, but he sees everything. I almost smiled. That was precisely the impression we wanted. Music filled the hall. Maris drifted gracefully from one conversation to another, healing reputations, collecting secrets, winning sympathy. Watching her now, I finally understood why she had defeated me before. She never asked people to trust her. She simply behaved like the sort of woman they already wanted to trust. The realization chilled me, because people rarely question the person who comforts them. Late that afternoon, an unexpected visitor arrived. Commander Lucian Vale. He crossed the ballroom with military precision, ignoring everyone else, stopping directly before me. We need to speak. I disagree. It concerns House Vane. That caught my attention. He withdrew a leather portfolio, royal blue, sealed with the crown's emblem. I've been authorized to present this personally. He handed it toward me. I didn't touch it. What is it? A temporary emergency administration agreement. I already knew. Not from memory. From the way he smiled. It allows me to supervise House Vane's mining operations during the current political uncertainty. I laughed quietly. Political uncertainty? Your engagement has unsettled investors. My father remains Lord of House Vane. Naturally. Then why would anyone else require authority? Lucian's smile became tighter. Only until the marriage. No, you haven't read it. I don't need to. He lowered his voice. You're making emotional decisions. There are responsibilities you don't fully understand. I understand perfectly. I don't think you do. His patience finally began to crack. This protects your family's future. No, it protects yours. Several nearby nobles pretended not to listen. Every one of them listened. Lucian glanced toward Kaelin standing near the windows. This is because of him. No, this is because of you. He stared. What has he told you? The truth. What truth? That I finally learned the difference between affection. I met his eyes. And ownership. His face hardened. I've been more patient than anyone else would have been. You mistake patience for entitlement. The words landed harder than I intended. For a brief moment, the polished hero disappeared. Something colder looked back at me. You've changed. So I've heard. You were never suspicious before. I was. I simply trusted the wrong people. His gaze drifted toward Maris. Only for an instant. But I caught it. So did Kaelin. Lucian slipped another document from the portfolio. This one requires your signature today. I won't sign. You haven't opened it. I said no. It authorizes emergency financial oversight. No. It prevents market panic. No. His voice became dangerously calm. You really intend to let Black Spire control your future? My future is already my own. He leaned closer. You have no idea what kind of man you've chosen. I answered just as quietly. And you have no idea what kind of woman you've lost. He left without another word. The ballroom slowly exhaled. Conversations resumed. Music returned. But something had changed. People were watching Lucian now. Not admiring him. Questioning him. That alone was a victory. Small. But important. After the guests departed, Kaelin joined me on the palace terrace. Snow clouds gathered over the eastern mountains. You handled him well. I almost lost my temper. You didn't. I wanted to. I know. He rested both gloved hands on the stone railing. Restraint wins longer wars. I looked sideways at him. You fought this battle before. Several times. And every time. He hesitated. I learned a little more. The wind carried silence between us. Finally I asked, what did Lucian truly want from that agreement? Kaelin reached inside his coat. He withdrew another folded document. Older. Worn. Its edges had yellowed. I found this in one of the previous timelines. I unfolded it carefully. At first glance, it appeared identical to the agreement Lucian had offered, until I reached the final page. Hidden beneath layers of legal language, one clause had been circled in dark ink. Should Lady Alara Vane be declared mentally incapable of managing House Vane, temporary authority shall immediately transfer to Commander Lucian Vale until further review by the Royal Council. My hands went cold. I kept reading. Another clause. Then another. Everyone pointed toward the same outcome. Not marriage. Control. Absolute legal control. I slowly lowered the papers. He never needed my love. Kaelin's gray eyes remained fixed on the horizon. No. He only needed your signature. A cold realization settled over me. The crypt. The fire. The murder. None of it had been the beginning. It had merely been the moment I finally stopped being useful. And somewhere inside the palace, someone had already prepared the next move. Because if they couldn't make me surrender my inheritance willingly, they would make the entire kingdom believe I had lost my mind. The first assassination attempt came disguised as an audit. 3 officials from the royal treasury arrived at Vane Manor carrying polished ledgers, sealed warrants, and perfectly rehearsed smiles. According to them, the crown merely wished to verify the kingdom's silver reserves. According to the documents, everything was legal. According to their eyes, they were searching for something else. I welcomed them inside. Then I quietly ordered every servant to write down every question they asked. People searching for silver discussed numbers. People searching for secrets asked about tunnels. By sunset, I knew exactly which kind of visitors they were. They never inspected the vaults. I placed the reports across the library table. They only asked about abandoned shafts beneath the western mines. Kaelin studied the pages in silence. The old tunnels. You know them. I know what lies beneath them. His answer was carefully chosen. Too carefully. I looked up. The Hollowborn? He didn't answer. Instead, he unfolded a detailed map of House Vane's mining territory. Ancient ink-covered brittle parchment. Many of the tunnels shown no longer existed. Other had never appeared on any official map. He pointed toward a forgotten section beneath the northern ridge. Your family sealed these tunnels almost 80 years ago. My grandfather? No. His mother. I frowned. Why? Because miners disappeared. I expected him to continue. He didn't. You believe the Treasury officials were looking for this? I know they were. He tapped the sealed tunnels again. They weren't searching for silver. They were searching for a door. That night, we entered the abandoned mine ourselves. Only 4 people came. Kaelin, my father, Agnes, and me. No soldiers. No servants. The fewer people who knew, the longer our advantage would last. The entrance had been hidden behind decades of overgrown ivy. Cold air escaped through cracks in the stone. It smelled ancient. Not rotten. Not damp. Simply old. As if the mountain remembered a time before kingdoms. Agnes lit an iron lantern. Blue fire filled the glass instead of orange. It burns silver oil, she explained. It reveals what ordinary flames cannot. The deeper we walked, the quieter the world became. Even our footsteps seemed reluctant to echo. Eventually, we reached a circular chamber unlike anything I had ever seen. The walls were carved with thousands of tiny silver symbols. Chains thicker than tree trunks disappeared into the darkness below. At the center stood a massive stone door. No handle. No hinges. Only one enormous seal forged from enchanted silver. My father stared in disbelief. I've owned these mines for 30 years. I never knew this existed. Kaelin spoke without taking his eyes from the door. Your family wasn't meant to know. Something moved. Not outside. Inside the mountain. A slow vibration passed beneath our feet. The chains groaned. My heartbeat accelerated. What was that? The prison. The Hollowborn? They're awake. My father instinctively reached for his sword. Can they escape? Not yet. The words offered little comfort. As Agnes inspected the ancient seal, I noticed Kaelin standing unnaturally still. His breathing had changed. Slower. More controlled. Almost strained. Kaelin. He didn't answer. Only after several seconds did he raise one gloved hand. His fingers trembled. Very slightly. Then he began removing the glove. No. Agnes spoke sharply. My lord. You shouldn't. It's already happening. His voice sounded different. Lower. Rougher. I'd rather she see it herself. The glove slipped free. Forgot how to breathe. Black markings covered his right hand. Not ink. Not scars. They moved. Thin veins of darkness spread beneath his skin like living roots. They pulsed with faint silver light. The farther they climbed toward his wrist, the colder the chamber became. My father took an involuntary step backward. What is that? Kaelin answered without emotion. My prison. I couldn't stop staring. The marks were terrifying. Yet somehow, not evil. They looked like chains buried beneath flesh, holding something in place. Does it hurt? He looked at me. Every day. And you simply live with it. No self-pity. No complaint. Only fact. I slowly reached toward his hand. Agnes inhaled sharply. My lady. Don't. Kaelin didn't move. If she wishes to know, she deserves the truth. My fingertips brushed the back of his hand. The instant our skin touched, the chamber exploded with light. Silver symbols ignited across every wall. The enormous chains rattled violently. The stone beneath us shook. A deafening sound echoed through the mine. Not thunder. Not collapsing rock. A voice. Ancient. Immense. Neither male nor female. It seemed to come from everywhere at once. The blood of Vane. My hand jerked away. The light vanished instantly. Silence returned. No one moved. No one breathed. Agnes crossed herself. My father stared at me as though seeing his own daughter for the first time. What? My voice barely existed. Was that? Kalen slowly pulled his glove back on. It recognized you. How? Because your blood sealed this prison. My blood. Your ancestors. He looked toward the massive silver door. The Vane family didn't become wealthy because they found silver. He paused. They became wealthy because they were chosen to guard it. We left the mine shortly before dawn. No one spoke during the journey home. The mountain had revealed too much. Yet somehow, I felt it had revealed almost nothing. The following afternoon, another messenger arrived from the capital. Not for me. For my father. Royal summons. Mandatory attendance. Emergency session of the High Council. He broke the seal. Read the contents once. Then again. His expression hardened. What is it? I asked. He handed me the letter. The council demanded immediate review of House Vane's mining rights. Reason stated, potential corruption within House Vane leadership. No evidence. No accusations. Only suspicion. The first step toward confiscation. Exactly as before. Only sooner. They're accelerating, I whispered. Kalen nodded. We changed the timeline. So they've changed theirs. For several moments none of us spoke. Then Agnes quietly entered the room carrying a small velvet box. My lord. It has begun. Kalen accepted the box without opening it. His eyes remained fixed on me. It seems we have less time than I hoped. What is it? He opened the lid. Inside rested a single silver pendant. Simple. Oval. Its surface reflected no light. And said, it absorbed it. I've seen this before. I frowned. No. You haven't. I have. A memory surfaced. Not from this life. From the moments before the fire. Around Marispel's neck. Hidden beneath her white mourning dress. The same pendant. The very same design. My pulse thundered. How is that possible? Kalen's voice became almost inaudible. Because that pendant was never hers. He gently closed the box. It belonged inside Black Spire. And someone stole it. Outside the window, the western sky darkened beneath gathering storm clouds. Somewhere far beyond the mountains, the bells of Black Spire rang once. Deep. Heavy. Like a warning. Because if Maris possessed a relic meant to remain sealed inside the mountain prison, then she wasn't merely part of the conspiracy. She had been connected to Black Spire long before she ever met Lucian Vale. 3 days later, we left the capital before sunrise. No royal farewell. No parade. No blessing from the crown. Only a single black carriage disappearing into the northern mist. Officially, I was traveling to Black Spire to complete the final rites required before my marriage. Unofficially, we were hunting the truth. The farther north we traveled, the quieter the world became. Villages grew smaller. Roads narrowed into winding mountain paths. The forest changed. The trees were older here. Taller. Their branches twisted together so tightly that sunlight reached the ground only in scattered fragments. No birds sang. Even the horses breathed more softly. Clara pulled the carriage curtain aside just enough to whisper, "My lady." Yes. Has this road always felt so? She searched for the word. Awake. Before I could answer, Agnes spoke from the opposite seat. You're feeling Black Spire. It watches every traveler. Clara laughed nervously. That's impossible. No. Agnes looked out the window. It simply doesn't sleep. By dusk, the mountains emerged from the fog. Black Spire was unlike any fortress I had ever imagined. It wasn't built on the mountain. It had been carved into it. Dark towers rose directly from the stone cliffs. Massive bridges connected walls that seemed impossible to construct. Silver veins ran naturally through the black rock, glowing faintly beneath the fading light. Above everything, hundreds of bronze bells hung from iron arches stretching across the highest peaks. None of them moved. Yet every traveler lowered their voice upon seeing them. Kalen finally spoke. Welcome home. The word startled me. Home. No one had called any place home since my first life ended. The gates opened before our carriage stopped. No soldiers waited beyond them. Instead, men and women dressed in plain charcoal clothing lined the entrance. Miners. Blacksmiths. Teachers. Children. No one bowed. No one cheered. They simply placed one fist over their heart as Kalen walked past. He returned the gesture to every single one of them, the ruler, and the people. No fear, only quiet respect. I leaned toward Agnes. They don't kneel. They never have. Why? Because Lord Thorn forbade it. She smiled faintly. He says a protector walks beside his people, never above them. For the first time, I wondered how many stories the kingdom had invented simply because no one bothered to learn the truth. My chamber overlooked the eastern cliffs. It was elegant without being extravagant. Stone walls, dark oak furniture, fresh mountain flowers resting beside the window. No unnecessary luxury. Someone had thought carefully about every detail. As I unpacked, a folded note lay beneath the vase. Only 4 words. Meet me after sunset. No signature. None was necessary. The bells rang once as darkness settled over Black Spire. Agnes led me through corridors illuminated by blue-silver lamps. We passed libraries older than kingdoms, training halls where warriors practice without speaking, shrines carved directly into living stone. Finally, we reached a narrow staircase descending deep beneath the fortress, much deeper than the prison chamber beneath House Vane. The air grew colder. The walls shimmered with natural veins of enchanted silver. Every few yards, ancient symbols had been carved into the rock, the same symbols I had seen beneath our mines. Only here, there were thousands more. What is this place? Agnes answered quietly. The first seal. At the bottom of the staircase stood Kalen. He waited alone beside a vast underground lake. The water reflected no light. It looked like polished obsidian stretching endlessly into darkness. He didn't turn as I approached. I wasn't sure you'd come. I almost didn't. I know. Silence settled between us. The lake remained perfectly still. No ripples. No wind. Nothing. Finally I spoke. You've shown me pieces. The prison. The markings. The timelines. But never the whole truth. What are you protecting me from? Kalen looked across the water. Myself. He reached slowly toward the iron mask. Every instinct told me to look away, and said, I stepped closer. You don't have to. I do. His fingers released the hidden clasps. One by one. Metal clicked softly. The mask slid free. He lowered it into his hands. For several seconds, I could only stare. There was no monstrous face. No horrific scars. No curse twisting his features. He was simply a man. His features were sharp. His dark hair fell loosely across his forehead. A thin white scar crossed one eyebrow. His gray eyes looked impossibly tired, beautiful, and exhausted. Then I saw it. The black markings. They climbed from his neck toward his temple like living branches beneath pale skin. Faint silver light pulsed inside them, as though something beneath the surface breathed. I don't understand. You expected a monster. I expected. I shook my head. I don't know what I expected. The mask doesn't hide my face. He looked directly at me. It hides theirs. Before I could ask what he meant, his expression changed. His eyes lost focus. The markings brightened. The underground lake trembled. Then he spoke. Except, it wasn't his voice. It echoed through the cavern from every direction. Ancient. Endless. Impossible. You have returned. Every hair on my body stood upright. I stepped backward instinctively. The voice continued. 7 endings. And still you seek another. Kalen's body remained perfectly still. Only his mouth moved. Yet the voice belonged to something unimaginably older. Agnes quietly knelt. Not in worship. In preparation. Her hand rested on the hilt of a silver dagger. The voice laughed. Not cruelly. Sadly. Guardian. You still believe love can change fate. The markings suddenly flared. Kalen staggered. The strange voice vanished. He caught himself against the stone wall, breathing hard. I rushed forward. Kalen. I'm fine. You are clearly not. I've been worse. His attempt at humor failed. He looked pale. Far paler than before. You hear it every day? Every hour. And the mask helps keep it quiet. I stared at the discarded iron mask. It had never been hiding him. It had been protecting everyone else. We remained beside the underground lake until the silence returned. Eventually, I asked the question that had haunted me since the day we met. In every timeline, you knew me. Yes. But I never knew you. No. Why? He smiled sadly. Because I made certain of it. I frowned. What do you mean? In every previous life, I stayed away. You stayed away? You were safer believing I was only a rumor. My chest tightened. You watched from a distance. I guarded roads you never noticed. I removed assassins before they reached your estate. I bribed officials. I intercepted letters. I prevented wars. But I never spoke to you. Why? His answer came almost as a whisper. Because every future where I stood beside you ended with your death. The words hurt far more than I expected. So you chose loneliness. I chose your life. Neither of us spoke. The cavern seemed impossibly quiet. Finally, he looked at me with an honesty that felt almost unbearable. I loved you. The words were simple, unadorned. I loved you in every life. I simply never allowed you to know. My breath caught. No one had ever confessed love without asking for anything in return. No expectation. No demand. Only truth. I opened my mouth to answer. Before a single word escaped, the underground lake exploded into ripples. The silver symbols surrounding the cavern ignited all at once. A voice rose from beneath the mountain. Not through Kalen this time. Through the stone itself. Through the water. Through the bells hanging above Black Spire. It whispered one name. Not Alara. A name I had never heard. Yet somehow, felt achingly familiar. Elleries. The sound echoed through every chamber beneath the mountain. My knees nearly gave way. Images flashed across my mind. A woman wearing silver armor. A battlefield covered in ash. Hands stained with blood. A broken crown. My own eyes. Only centuries older. The voice spoke once more. Softly. Almost lovingly. Welcome back. First Keeper. The vision disappeared. The cavern fell silent. I stood frozen, one trembling hand pressed against my chest. Because I had never heard the name Elleries before. And yet, some forgotten part of my soul had answered it. I did not sleep. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw another woman's memories. A battlefield beneath a blood-red sky. A silver crown breaking in two. A pair of hands, my hands, pressing against a massive stone gate while thousands screamed behind it. And that name, Elleries. It echoed through my dreams until dawn. The bells of Black Spire rang before sunrise. Not once. Not twice. 9 slow chimes. Agnes entered my chamber before the final bell faded. Her face was pale. My lady. What happened? The first seal has awakened. I rose immediately. The voice. She nodded. It hasn't spoken that name in nearly 900 years. I froze. 900. Agnes looked directly into my eyes. There has only ever been one First Keeper. Neither of us finished the sentence. We didn't need to. The council chamber of Black Spire sat beneath the mountain itself. Unlike the royal palace, nothing here glittered. The room had been carved from a single piece of black stone. Maps covered the central table. Silver threads marked every mine, fortress, and prison throughout the kingdom. Kalen stood alone before them. He hadn't slept either. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. The iron mask had returned. He looked up as I entered. It spoke to you. It called me Elleries. His shoulders lowered almost imperceptibly. I prayed it wouldn't. You knew. I feared. There is a difference. I stepped closer. No more fragments. No more half-truths. If we're running toward the same disaster, I deserve the whole story. Silence. Long enough that I almost believed he would refuse again. And said, he removed a leather journal from the table. Its pages had yellowed with age. The cover had been repaired countless times. My journal. You keep a diary? I keep memories. He handed it to me. The first page. The handwriting was his. Neat. Precise. Steady. The date made no sense. Cycle 1. Beneath it, only a single sentence. She died before I reached the crypt. The second page. Cycle 2. The fire never happened. The poison did. Asterisk asterisk another page. Cycle 3. Lucian died. The council survived. She still fell. Asterisk asterisk page after page. Year after year. Funeral after funeral. Each entry ended the same way. Alara's dead. By the final pages, the handwriting had changed. Shook. Ink blurred where water had stained the paper. Or tears. I reached the final completed entry. Cycle 7. She remembered me. We destroyed the council. We sealed the Hollowborn. She died in my arms before sunrise. My vision blurred. I closed the journal. Neither of us spoke. There were no words large enough. Finally, I whispered, "Why only you? Why do only you remember?" Kalen looked toward the enormous stone ceiling. As punishment. For what? For failing. You didn't fail. I did. His voice remained calm. I broke the first seal. The room seemed to grow colder. You what? I opened it. When? The first time. But why? His answer came almost immediately. To save you. The words echoed through the chamber. I was too late. The crypt had already collapsed. The fire had already spread. I believed the creature beneath Black Spire could return time. It offered me one bargain. His gloved hand slowly tightened. I accepted. What bargain? It would return me to the beginning. Every time you died. I stared at him. That sounds like hope. It wasn't. It lied. He looked directly at me. It never promised I could save you. It only promised I could try again. A terrible silence settled over the chamber. You've lived. I struggled to understand the number. 7 different lives. 8. He corrected softly. This is the 8th. 8 lives. 8 futures. 8 failures. All because one man refused to accept my death. The chamber doors suddenly burst open. One of Blackspire's scouts stumbled inside. His uniform was torn. Blood streaked one sleeve. My lord. Kalen moved before the man finished speaking. What happened? The capital. The royal council. The scout fought for breath. They've advanced the coronation. My heart stopped. What? It was scheduled for next month. Not anymore. He handed over a sealed royal decree. The ceremony is in 4 days. 4. Not 30. 4. I looked at Kalen. They know. They suspect. We changed too much. He nodded once. They're accelerating the end. The scout continued. There is more. Speak. We intercepted correspondence between Commander Vale and Lady Maris. He unfolded another document. This one wasn't official. No seal. Only hurried handwriting. Kalen scanned it, then silently handed it to me. I read the first line. My blood turned to ice. The pendant has awakened. The second line was worse. The vain girl remembers more than expected. The third line destroyed every illusion I still carried. Proceed with the coronation right before the Guardian brings her beneath the mountain again. Guardian. They knew about Kalen. They knew about Black Spire. This conspiracy had never been limited to the royal court. Someone inside the mountain had been feeding them information. Agnes stepped toward the map. There must be another traitor. There has to be. Kalen remained unnaturally quiet. Too quiet. I knew that silence. It meant he had reached a decision. One he wouldn't like. I turned toward him. What are you thinking? He didn't answer immediately. And said, he removed the silver pendant from the velvet box. The stolen relic. Its dark surface reflected neither fire nor light. Only shadows. It was never a key. He said quietly. It was a vessel. For what? The Hollowborn king. Agnes inhaled sharply. My lord. No. She stepped toward him. There has to be another way. There isn't. I looked between them. What aren't you telling me? Kalen finally met my eyes. The prison isn't failing. It never was. The creature has never escaped. Then why? Because it doesn't need to. He raised the pendant. It only needs someone willing to carry it. Understanding struck me all at once. No. His expression never changed. If I bind it to myself, the coronation rite ends before it begins. You'll die. Perhaps. No. It isn't your decision. It is. He stepped closer. I've watched you die 8 times. I won't watch a 9th. His voice remained calm. Too calm. The kind of calm people found only after making peace with sacrifice. I grabbed his arm. You promised. He looked down at my hand. I promised to reach you before the fire. You did. Then let me keep the rest of my promise. I never asked you to die for me. I know. You don't get to choose this alone. For the first time since I'd met him, emotion broke through his composure. Not anger. Grief. I've already chosen. That night, the fortress prepared for departure. Warriors sharpened silver blades. Messengers rode through the mountain passes. The bells rang without stopping. Everyone believed they were preparing to defend the kingdom. Only Agnes and I knew the truth. Kalen wasn't preparing for war. He was preparing for his own execution. Long after midnight, I entered the ancient armory alone. The ritual weapons rested upon a black stone altar. At the center lay a single silver blade. The one Kalen intended to use when binding the Hollowborn king to himself. Picked it up. Its edge shimmered with ancient runes. For a long moment, I simply held it. Then I quietly replaced it with another blade of identical size and weight. One without the binding runes. If Kalen intended to sacrifice himself, he was going to discover that his plan no longer existed. As this time, I refused to become the woman whose survival demanded the death of the only man who had spent 8 lifetimes trying to save her. And somewhere deep beneath Black Spire, the ancient voice laughed, as though it had been waiting for exactly that choice. The capital had never looked more beautiful, or more doomed. Before dawn, every avenue leading to the royal palace had been draped in white silk and silver banners. Thousands of citizens crowded the streets. Church bells answered one another across the city. Children laughed. Merchants shouted. Musicians filled the air with triumphant hymns. No one realized they had gathered to witness the end of a kingdom. Our carriage crossed the eastern bridge just as the first rays of sunlight touched the palace towers. No guards attempted to stop Blackspire's procession. They couldn't. The old protection accord guaranteed safe passage. The law they had ignored for centuries had become the shield protecting us now. Inside the carriage, no one spoke. Agnes quietly checked the silver cartridges hidden beneath her cloak. My father held a leather satchel containing every document we had gathered. Medical records, treasury ledgers, secret correspondence, bank transfers. Enough evidence to destroy reputations. Not enough to stop what was coming. Across from me, Kalen stared through the window. His iron mask concealed most of his face. But I knew him well enough now. He had already said goodbye. The palace courtyard overflowed with nobles. Crystal mirrors floated above the ceremony to broadcast the coronation throughout the kingdom. Every important family had arrived. Every royal official. Every military commander. Every council member. Exactly as planned. If the conspiracy wanted the entire kingdom watching, so did we. The grand cathedral stood at the center of the palace grounds. Its towering silver dome reflected the morning sun. Hundreds of candles burned along the marble aisle. At the far end, the royal throne waited beneath a massive silver crown suspended from the ceiling. Beautiful. Ancient. Corrupted. I could feel it. The moment I crossed the threshold, the pendant hidden somewhere within the cathedral began calling to me. Not with words. With hunger. Trumpets sounded. The High Chancellor stepped forward. Ladies and gentlemen. His voice echoed through enchanted crystal. Today we celebrate the future of our kingdom. No. I thought quietly. Today, the truth begins. The ceremony unfolded exactly as protocol demanded. The royal family entered. The council took their seats. Military commanders lined the walls. Lucian stood beside the throne wearing ceremonial white armor polished until it gleamed like sunlight. Maris stood only a few steps behind him. Soft smile. Perfect posture. Her silver pendant rested beneath the collar of her dress. Only I noticed the faint black light pulsing beneath the fabric. She smiled when our eyes met. as though she already knew how the day would end. When the Chancellor called for witnesses to affirm the kingdom's unity, my father stood. Gasps swept through the cathedral. He walked slowly toward the center. I request the right to present evidence before the coronation proceeds. The Chancellor frowned. This is highly irregular. The law permits it. My father placed the leather satchel upon the marble floor. It concerns treason. The word echoed through the cathedral. Every conversation stopped. Lucian's smile disappeared. Maris didn't move. One by one, my father presented the evidence. Medical journals proving years of poisoning. Treasury records revealing stolen silver shipments. Letters connecting council members to secret accounts. Witness testimonies from dismissed servants. Each document landed like another crack spreading through frozen glass. Whispers filled the cathedral. Faces turned pale. Council members stopped looking at one another. Lucian remained perfectly still. Until my father unfolded the final document. The Emergency Administration Agreement. He held it high enough for the crystal mirrors to capture every word. The clause declaring my daughter mentally incapable before any physician had ever examined her. The cathedral erupted. People shouted. Council members argued. The High Chancellor demanded silence. For one glorious moment, the conspiracy began collapsing beneath its own weight. Then, Lucian laughed. Softly, almost sympathetically. You truly believe this changes anything? His voice carried effortlessly through the cathedral. You've mistaken evidence. He slowly drew his ceremonial sword. For victory. Maris stepped forward, still smiling. She reached beneath her collar. Slowly, deliberately, she lifted the silver pendant into the light. Every candle inside the cathedral flickered. The temperature dropped instantly. No one understood why. Kaelin did. Ilara. His voice was barely audible. Get down. Too late. Maris crushed the pendant in her hand. Black dust scattered across the marble floor. The silver veins running through the cathedral ignited. Not with light. With darkness. Every enchanted silver ornament inside the palace answered at once. The throne. The crown. The walls. The bells. The city itself. The kingdom's entire silver network awakened. Then, it screamed. The sound shattered windows across the capital. People covered their ears. Children cried. Stone cracked beneath our feet. Deep below the cathedral, something enormous struck the prison gates. Once. Twice. Again. The Hollowborn had found the opening they had waited centuries to claim. The marble floor split apart. Black mist poured upward through widening fractures. Shapes moved inside it. Too many limbs. Too many eyes. Creatures neither fully living nor fully dead crawled toward the surface. The cathedral dissolved into panic. Nobles fled. Soldiers drew weapons. Priests shouted prayers. None of it mattered. Ordinary steel passed harmlessly through the creatures. Only silver slowed them. Lucian looked around in horror. This wasn't the plan. Maris smiled at him. No. It never was. He grabbed her arm. What have you done? She gently removed his hand. I borrowed your ambition. You said we'd rule. I said what you needed to hear. For the first time, the great Commander Lucian Vale understood. He had never been her partner, only another tool. The ceiling cracked. Pieces of stained glass rained across the cathedral. One enormous section fell directly toward the royal family. Kaelin moved before anyone else. He caught the collapsing stone with both hands. The impact drove him to one knee. The black markings spread beneath his gloves. Faster. Far faster than before. The iron mask began vibrating. Agnes screamed. My lord. I know. His voice sounded strained. The ancient whispers had returned. I could hear them now. Hundreds. Thousands. Speaking through him. Calling his name. Demanding release. He looked at me. Even through the mask, I saw peace in his eyes. The kind of peace that terrified me. He had reached the moment he had expected all along. Slowly, he unclasped the iron mask. No. I ran toward him. He smiled. The same quiet smile I had seen only once before. You replaced the blade. My heart stopped. You knew. I always know when you lie. Despite everything. He almost laughed. Then he removed the mask. Darkness erupted from the markings across his face. Black light swallowed the cathedral ceiling. The Hollowborn froze. Every creature turned toward him. Not me. Not the throne. Him. The guardian. The vessel. The ancient voice thundered through every stone in the palace. At last. The darkness surged into Kalen's body. The markings consumed his neck. His face. His arms. Silver chains of light wrapped around him, trying desperately to hold whatever was entering. His body trembled. But he never cried out. He simply endured. As he always had. When the light finally faded, the cathedral became unnaturally silent. Smoke drifted through broken stained glass. The creatures knelt. Not in fear. In recognition. Kalen slowly raised his head. The gray in his eyes had vanished. In its place, endless blackness. When he spoke, two voices answered. His own. And another infinitely older. Ilara. My name sounded almost human. Then his hand tightened around the ruined silver chains binding the cathedral floor. His body shook violently. For one impossible heartbeat, the real Kalen fought his way back to the surface. He looked directly into my eyes. Tears mixed with blood beneath the spreading black markings. His voice broke, barely above a whisper. Please. The second voice tried to silence him. He fought it. With everything he had left. Kill. Darkness swallowed half the word. He forced it out anyway. Me. The cathedral fell silent. Because after 8 lifetimes spent trying to save mine, the man who had never once asked me for anything, was asking me for the only thing I could never give him. Kill me. The word shattered something inside me. Around us the grand cathedral lay in ruins. Silver pillars leaned at impossible angles. Stained glass smoldered across the marble floor. The Hollowborn waited in absolute silence. Not attacking. Not retreating. Watching. Waiting for my choice. Kalen stood at the center of the destruction, fighting a battle no one else could see. One eye remained his own. The other had become an endless abyss. Black veins climbed across his face like living shadows. His body trembled with every breath. Though he did not take a single step toward me. He was still fighting. Still protecting me. Even from himself. No. My voice barely rose above a whisper. His jaw tightened. Ilara. No. The ancient voice answered through him. He cannot win. I know. He will destroy everything. I know. End him. I slowly walked toward Kalen. Each step echoed across the broken cathedral. Behind me Agnes cried out. My lady. Don't get closer. The guardian seal is collapsing. I kept walking. 8 lifetimes. 8 failures. Everyone had ended because someone believed sacrifice was the only answer. Not this one. Kalen dropped to one knee. Blood stained the marble beneath him. The darkness spreading through his body pulsed violently. His fingers dug into the shattered floor. Leave. He struggled to speak. Before. The Hollowborn king laughed through him. He still believes he can save you. I know. He cannot. You're wrong. For the first time, the ancient voice became silent. A memory surfaced. Not mine. Not entirely. The battlefield. The broken crown. The silver gates. A woman standing alone before an ocean of darkness. Ellery's. She wasn't fighting with a sword. She was drawing symbols in her own blood. The first keeper. Suddenly, I understood. The prison had never been locked by strength. It had been sealed by choice. I looked toward the enormous silver crown hanging above the throne. The enchanted metal connected every mine, every fortress, every protective seal throughout the kingdom. For centuries, House Vane had believed they owned the silver. No, they had carried responsibility for it. The network wasn't a weapon. It was a prison, and prisons could be rebuilt. I picked up a shattered piece of enchanted silver from the floor. Its sharp edge sliced across my palm. Warm blood spilled onto the ancient metal. The cathedral began shaking. Every surviving silver vein answered. The broken symbols beneath my feet reignited. Not black. Silver. Pure. Brilliant. The Hollowborn king roared. No. The voice no longer sounded confident. It sounded afraid. I pressed my bleeding hand against the fractured floor. The memories returned completely. Not another life. Not reincarnation. Inheritance. Every first keeper had carried the memories of those before them. When the line ended, the memories vanished. Until another bearer awakened them. I had never become Ellery's. I had inherited her promise. A promise made 9 centuries earlier. Never allow the prison to become a sacrifice. Always make it a choice. Silver light exploded through the cathedral. It raced beneath the palace. Through every street. Every mine. Every forgotten tunnel beneath the kingdom. People across Avara stopped where they stood as glowing silver lines spread beneath their feet like rivers of starlight. The bells of Black Spire began ringing. Not 1. Not 10. All of them. Hundreds of ancient bells answered together. Their sound rolled across mountains and valleys. The kingdom itself had awakened. The darkness inside Kaelin convulsed. The Hollowborn king screamed, "You cannot imprison me again." "I don't intend to." I met Kaelin's eyes. Both of them. "I intend to send you where you belong." The silver network answered my voice. Every ancient seal opened. Not outward. Inward. The darkness poured from Kaelin's body. Not slowly. Violently. Like an endless river pulled into the glowing silver beneath the kingdom. The creatures throughout the cathedral dissolved into black ash. The shadows fled through the enchanted veins. Toward the deepest prison beneath Black Spire. Toward the place they had escaped centuries ago. The cathedral shook one final time. Then, silence. Complete. Perfect. The black markings vanished from Kaelin's skin. One by one. Though they had never existed. He collapsed. I caught him before he struck the floor. His breathing was shallow, but steady. The gray had returned to his eyes. For several terrifying seconds, he didn't move. Then, very quietly, "Alara." I laughed. I cried. I couldn't tell the difference anymore. "You're late." A faint smile appeared. "I promised." He struggled for breath. "Before the fire. You kept your promise." Behind us, someone applauded. Slow. Deliberate. Lucian. He stood alone beside the shattered throne. His white ceremonial armor was stained with ash. His sword lay broken at his feet. He looked older. Smaller. As though ambition itself had abandoned him. I spent years believing power belonged to the strongest. His voice echoed through the ruined cathedral. I was wrong. He looked at me. It belonged to the one everyone underestimated. I stood slowly. Kaelin remained behind me. Alive. At last. Lucian lowered his head. "I suppose history will remember me as the villain." "No." I answered calmly. "History will remember you as a warning." Royal guards surrounded him. This time. He did not resist. As they led him away, he passed the entrance to the underground crypt beneath the cathedral. The same prison where innocent nobles had disappeared for generations. The same darkness where I had once died alone. Its iron doors closed behind him with a deafening echo. For the first time, he understood what waiting without hope truly felt like. Marispel was nowhere to be seen, until a scream echoed from beneath the fractured marble. The surviving Hollowborn shadows, stripped of their king, recognized the woman who had freed them. They did not welcome her. They claimed her. She vanished into the darkness she had chosen. No trial. No execution. Only consequence. Weeks later, the kingdom began rebuilding. The royal council was dissolved. Its surviving members stood before open courts rather than secret chambers. House Vane reopened every silver mine under public oversight. The enchanted network remained. Not hidden anymore. Protected. Shared. Remembered. My father lived to see the first peaceful winter in decades. Agnes became keeper of the first seal. Clara insisted on decorating every gloomy hallway inside Black Spire with flowers, despite the protests of every stone-faced steward. Within months, the fortress no longer felt like a prison, felt like a home. The first spring arrived quietly. Snow melted from the mountain peaks. Wildflowers pushed through ancient stone. For the first time in years, the bells of Black Spire remained silent. They had nothing left to warn the world about. I found Kalen standing on the eastern overlook at sunrise. No mask. No gloves. The wind moved gently through his dark hair. He looked younger somehow, as if 8 lifetimes had finally released their grip. He turned as I approached. "I've been thinking. That sounds dangerous." He smiled. "It usually is." We stood together watching the sun climb above the mountains. After a long silence he spoke. "Do you regret it?" "Regret what?" "Choosing Black Spire." I looked across the valley stretching beyond the fortress, at the villages waking peacefully below, at the silver rivers shining beneath the morning light, at the man who had crossed 8 lifetimes just to keep one promise. Then I reached for his hand. No darkness answered, only warmth. I never chose a monster. His fingers intertwined with mine. I chose the only man who remembered me. I smiled through tears that no longer carried grief. When the world had forgotten, far above us, one final bell rang. Not as a warning, not as a farewell, but as the beginning of a new age. And beneath the endless blue sky of Black Spire, no one spoke of curses anymore. They spoke instead of a guardian who finally laid down his burden, and of the woman who proved that destiny is not rewritten by hatred, but by the courage to choose a different ending.